Hello, everybody, and welcome back to artofdino.com and saveearth.us. I've got a great article today that talks about South America in the city of Cuzco in an absolutely astounding way that talks basically has so many connections to what we've all been thinking, and it was apparently what they were thinking back then as well, which is why I wanted to read this one today, because it has a lot of elements in it that are amazing. And specific to the Incas, it talks about giants potentially building all of these things. There are so many different evidences unleashed in this article that it just brings to mind a truly magical place. And again, it brings to mind the fact that the world was most likely interconnected due to the similarities in their art, their customs, their architecture, all this stuff, because some of the architecture in Cuzco is absolutely astounding. And I will include some pictures of that as well, some ancient ones and some new ones. Anything that they mention in the article, I will try to put a picture of. So prepare to be blown away. I love talking about cities like this, like Burma and Cuzco, all these different places, Atrani, Italy, all these different places that show hints of underground and ancient mastery, underground as well. And above ground, underground, ethereal tech, ancient tech, giants, all these things are kind of connected, and it just again leads more and more towards a vision of a universal reality of land far beyond the poles, so much more space, so many more cultures, so much more technology, so many more different kinds of people, so many more different kinds of animals, so much more everything, and so much more tech, so much better building ability, so much better potential all around. Because if you think about giants and you add the giants into the mix, it makes sense why we can't do a lot of the things that were done in the past, but a bigger race would be able to do it a lot easier. They'd be able to mine things quicker, they'd be able to dig quicker, they'd be able to carry larger things. It's really one of the only explanations. In this article, again, has more proof of that. So I'm going to read it and I'll chime in from here and there. So get ready. This one is awesome. And again, it's from the Elizabethtown Gazette, September 14th, 1819. Here we go. The following account of the city of Cuzco in South America is extracted from an original article in the third number of the Belles Lettres Repository, an amusing magazine published monthly in this city. It begins. This city is situated in 13 degrees south latitude, 27 miles from the Pacific, in a valley about 12 miles long, at the southern fort of Mount Sacsayhuaman, on which is the citadel that commands the town. The city may be seen for 9 miles from the south, where the ridge of hills which surrounds it lessens in size. There is a magnificent gate. At this place all travelers and passengers were obliged to take off their sandals, throw out their cocoa quids, and make a bow in honor of the sovereign city. And the natives preserve the custom to this day, in the 1800s. The streets of ancient Cuzco are all of stone, long and narrow. It has 3 squares embellished by fountains and is crossed by 2 rivers from north to south. The largest of these is called Guatani, which means in the language of the country, perpetual motion, which makes me wonder that they knew about perpetual technologies and ways to use physics to create perpetuality. This name was given to it on account of criminals having been condemned to labor upon its banks, which were built up with quays of massy stone, cemented so as to form an immovable mass, notwithstanding the impetuosity of the winter torrents. I'm sure that's how it got its name. These quays are about 3 miles in extent and terminate in a beautiful cascade. The Spaniards threw arches across the river and erected houses upon them. Just with ease, apparently. It seems like threw arches across the river and erected houses upon them. That's pretty amazing what these past people were capable of that we can't come close to. Each of the provinces of the empire inhabited separate departments in the city, conformably to the municipal laws. Under a general administration regulated the whole of the empire. No tribe was permitted to intermarry with another, so at the first glance it was easy to distinguish each nation. There were public schools in which the general idiom of the country was taught, even to those inhabiting the most distant town. This facilitated the knowledge of the laws and of quipos. There were also hospitals, infirmaries, public storehouses for the poor, and indeed everything that political wisdom could devise or suggest for the happiness of a people. And again, you're going to find that they say it a couple times in this article, and it just makes you think again. These ancient people were all connected because all around the world they have the same architecture. They have very similar buildings, they have very similar laws, they have customs, and they seem to be welcoming of people from around the world. So it seems like every place may have been a melting pot, or at least Cuzco was. But let's keep going. Blah, 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 blah. The couriers or chasquis were regularly established with relays every 15 or 18 miles, and thus orders were communicated with the greatest alacrity. So that's just like their form of passing messages on. And I've heard about this before in the Incas, how they would just they were amazing runners, and they'd just run back and forth, pass the messages on, and stuff would get transferred very quick. As wars attracted the attention of government, they had beacons of fire to inform of the rising of any town, however remote. These signals flew from mountain to mountain as speedily as the instructions of modern telegraphs. The Peruvians now sometimes use them to spread the intelligence of the arrival of some great personage. That would be a beautiful sight. I'd like to see how that all went down, all these old customs that were just so in sync and so necessary and so smooth. And I'd love to see how it all fit, that we could just glimpse back into this ancient world that nobody knows about. As good roads were indispensable in a country mountainous and intersected by rapid torrents and waterfalls, the Incas constructed royal roads, which even now are superior to any in the world. This is interesting. From Cuzco to Quito, a distance of 1,500 miles, there is a straight road of stone, which is now perfect, notwithstanding earthquakes and time, a work not inferior to the Great Wall of China, Tartaria. So that's interesting. I want to check that road out. I feel like I've heard of that before, but I'd like to see how that fares from Google Earth. We'll see if I can attach some of that. Otherwise, you guys can look as well. South of Cusco, there were roads crossing the gigantic Andes, which were composed of a species of mortar as hard as stone. The canals and aqueducts also seem indestructible. One of the best fountains at Cuzco is that built by the Incas and situated in the garden of the Hospital of the Natives. The pipes are of stone, cemented with great neatness, and the earthquakes have never dislodged them. Very interesting as well. Amazingly interesting. And again, points to something about earthquakes that I don't really get yet, but I kind of am very suspicious of their naturalness, and because they seem to happen a little too frequently and a little too strategically, especially in America and San Francisco and many other places. The Spaniards wished to discover the spring of this fountain and dug to that effect. As they progressed, they found the pipes lay deeper and deeper. They abandoned the search, which has never been resumed, and the source remains unknown. Source of the fountains, and that's another thing incredible. Like, what happens as you dig closer, further and further down some of these fountains, like the Trevi Fountain in Italy, or any of these fountains, these that are totally ancient, that nobody's ever really checked where the source comes from. But you'd find, inevitably, close to the source, you'd find that technology. You'd find the builders, the architects of that, would have left some kind of thing, some kind of man-made thing right near the source. And so that would be very interesting to see, because at some point, some civilization had to have reached it in order to pipe from the source back out and up. So fountains, again, are a whole nother thing. And they were probably, the people must have been known. The people that were crafting these, from the artists to the tech and the construction teams building them, because they were so beautiful and so amazing and so much work, that you'd think that the team that did that and the many teams that did that would be very well known and remembered. But nothing is remembered in this realm. So here we go. The pipes are of stone, cemented with great neatness. The Spanish were blah, 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 blah. They abandoned the search. The streets run from north to south and from east to west. The longest, now in preservation, runs from the Temple of the Sun to Fort Sacsayhuaman. The walls on each side of the street are from 9 to 12 feet high. The surface of these is extremely smooth, and the stones joined, without any mortar, by an art which is now lost. They had different ways of placing the stones in masonry. Some looked like planed boards. Some had moldings like those of the City Hall in New York. So this is comparing Cusco, South American Incan, they tell us, totally different, absolutely 100%, couldn't be more different from the people of 1800s New York, but who built City Hall or something, they say. And then we have similarities there in the construction, in the moldings, like those of City Hall in New York. That is too much of a coincidence to me to be to follow the pathetic narrative that they give us. Again, something else is happening, and there was a time back in the day, way further beyond history's readings and writings, that all this stuff was made with ease in a prime time of a civilization, most likely with giants, and everything was connected. Could have been the same artists as in City Hall. Who knows? The same builders. Others, in their naturally irregular state, the interstices, filled with stone, filled to the shape of the vacancy, but all unite in an incomprehensible manner. The stone is of an excellent quality for the uses to which it was applied. It is freestone, extremely hard and of a clear brown color. The walls of the Temple of Sun, now the Church of St. Domingo, which I'll show is unbelievable, are still visible. The architecture is plain, simple, and very majestic. It looks pretty not plain and simple to me, but according to Garcilaso, one side of the temple was covered with a plate of gold, emblematically of the sun, and when pillaged, the share of the booty fell to a soldier who gambled it away the same night, which again sounds like another absolutely pathetically stupid tale, and most likely the Smithsonian or some other private collection had it. How could one man completely take off a plate of gold on the side wall of a massive church and then gamble it away the same night? That's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. On the left side of the temple are the walls of the Palace of the Virgins of the Sun. The dial columns have been converted into a huge stone cross. And again, how could anyone even melt down a wall and then carry it away? I can't even get over how foolish that is. I'm very curious about this, though. On the left side of the temple are the walls of the Palace of the Virgins of the Sun. The dial columns, I'm not exactly sure what that means, have been converted into a huge stone cross. So again, they always take out the old elements and replace them with the new ones so that it's easy to tell to the next generation. The next generation has no idea who did it, especially back then. So it's again one of their sneaky methods, and they talk about more of those, so stay tuned. From this temple to Fort Sacsayhuaman, there was a subterranean passage about a mile in length called by the natives Chingara. And I wonder what that stands for and how far that ended up going. If it was only a mile in length or if it was more. And again, what was it used for? They used subterranean things for so much, and there's so many in Mexico. When you think about the caves and all the different things where people now go swimming and scuba diving, those were all once above water or just had no water and were carved out and specific and purposeful. Either way, here we go. The entrance is very magnificent. It is on an inclined plane with a regular gradation of steps, but in all probability the Spaniards condemned it as a heathen work, and have therefore destroyed the shafts for admitting light. Thus have their bigotry and superstition injured or converted to their own use all the works erected by the Incas. That's a bad sentence. That stinks. This passage appears to have been made for the safety of the deity and virgins in cases of public emergency. Wow, so like how we nowadays have tunnels and stuff for our beloved, pathetic athletes that get paid excruciating amounts of money for doing stuff that's just not really benefiting humanity, and they get the ones that are tunnels now, and the celebrities at the Academy Awards, and the people of Congress, and all these precious people, they get it now. Back in the day, it was for virgins and the deity, which it sounds a lot better to me than any of those fools that we give protection for and create things to protect, who don't really give us much in return. So very interesting, and that's one reasoning for it. Could be something totally different. Nobody knows. Again, all speculation. In Cuzco, there are 23 places for divine worship, which means, again, this place was so magical beyond anything we can repair. They didn't only add crosses to completely change the structure of a building and completely change the history and everything like that. They added things like this to completely desecrate the past religions and make sure that they could not be seen again, since they were all seen as heathens to this glorious society and Jesuits and all these people that destroyed everything that was good. It's their perfect method. They're weaponizing things like that, and they can't, no matter how spiritual the people were of the past, these stubborn people in these more modern religions just did everything they could to destroy and disrespect those other peoples, and hence the magic gradually disappearing over years and years and years and generations because they destroyed it and replaced it with garbage. So here we go. In Cuzco, there are 23 places for divine worship. 9 of these are nunneries and monasteries containing at least 400 inhabitants. These convents are built with corridors, cloisters, spacious courts, all of stone collected from the masonry of the Incas. And it should be observed that the smallest of these churches has 3 naves and is much larger than any church in the United States. Very interesting. Some are in a good style of architecture. That of the Jesuits is of the Doric order. The cupola, covered with beautiful mosaic. The facade, the columns, and the style of the arches are, in the opinion of connoisseurs, equal to the fine architecture in Italy. Again. So we've got references in Cuzco, remember, to the Incas that are similar to New York City's City Hall and Italy and all other places of the world. Again, leaning more towards the fact that everyone was universal at one point in time, and people could probably travel places a lot quicker than we give them credit for. The three squares, same with information. Information probably traveled very quick. The three squares, which are decorated with arches, are also of the same materials, but placed together with little taste and much irregularity. It was in these squares that they displayed the gold chain with which they celebrated the birth of Huáscar, the 8th Inca. Huáscar signifies a chain. The account of the festivities on this occasion is so astonishing that posterity will doubtless consider it as fabulous. This chain, they say, was thrown by the Indians into the artificial lake of Urcos, 18 miles south of Cuzco. A few years ago, a Spaniard named Rexon, in search of it and intent on draining the lake, met with a solid and impenetrable rock. The fact goes far to prove that the lake was the result not of art, but of a volcanic eruption. To me, I don't see that. Again, they always blame volcanic eruptions as natural things in place of possible ancient masonry and construction. And again, I would tend to believe the myth over these modern liars. The royal gardens, which now belong to the Dominican monks, are a large quadrangle where, according to historians, all the trees and flowers were of solid silver and of the natural size, interspersed with figures of all known animals made of the same metal. So again, what? What is that? Where are those? Have any of those survived, and why? And silver, flowers of silver, animals of silver. Very interesting. What's the point? Again, more ether. The more metals they use, the more ether makes me think. And again, the gold. And I have a feeling that was things like that, like in Burma and those stupas. I have a feeling they were transmitting information or energy and many other things, power, all different kinds of things. Who knows? The most singular things in the gardens were the figures of men, all of gigantic size. Again, more proof of giants. Castor, the best historian of that country, relating the facts, says they were either made to preserve the memory of some noted giants or to display the quantity of the metal and the extravagance of the artist. And I'm going to say they were doing for the noted giants. That's what I'm going to guess. Instead of just showing off, the artist showing off, oh, we got a bunch of metal. I think they were doing, in order to dedicate a massive sculpture, you have to be very dedicated, and you don't just want to show off and spend years working on sculptures. You want to do it to honor people, and that helps the process go because you're motivated by that. You're not motivated by ego and materialist, which is, again, inserted from this modern era. Even though it's 1800s, still the materialism was there, and the spirituality was far more deadened and lessened than these ancient people, which these people in this article, and even now today, we can't even fathom the magic of their world. That is so important to realize. It was so different, so alien to us now, and we've been so conditioned to think differently and less spiritually that we can't fathom how magical this place was, but we can trust that it was. So here we go. It is clearly ascertained that in that part of the world there were uncommonly large animals, such as the mammoth, remains having been found there which indicate their former existence. And this the Incas knew, for in intimidating all their known animals, they have not forgotten the mammoth. What a great article. I love this article. It absolutely hammered on so many different things that are incredibly relevant, that we've been theorizing about, and so much more. So I hope I gathered enough good pictures. We'll see what I end up putting in there. I always do the speech first, and then I gather the pictures later a lot of the time. So I'm going to try and find some good ones for you all, and I hope you enjoy them. And if you have any more links or any information, if you're from Mexico, definitely put it below. I've heard some great stories, which might make for some cool videos, but you never know. I'd like to hear more always. It's always about learning and discovering more and expanding the imagination as to what these ancients were capable of, so that we can one day get back, or we can get motivated to go beyond the poles and find people that are still existing like this so we can learn from them. That's all it's about. We need to learn from them because we've been so poisoned and so polluted and are educated the wrong direction for so long that it's time we straighten things out. And in order to get that, we have to be motivated. We have to motivate people to find the answers, to want to know these things. So keep pumping out this stuff, keep filling the imaginations of others, keep inspiring others, and we know that this world will be better and we will make it so. So let's keep doing it. Hope to hear from you all. Have a great day. artofdino.com and saveearth.us. Check them out. Bless you all.